Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mission Control. And no, it's not NASA. So, why didn't we do the usual intro? My legs hurt like almighty hell. So, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's the same thing, pretty much, except I'm not coming from the camera and pretending like I didn't just turn on the camera. So, other than that, if, might be wondering, what is today's topic, Artemis? Are we finally getting away from the educational stuff? And, surprisingly not. So surprisingly, we are continuing on this educational train because I thought you guys would have been sick and tired of it by now, and I was honestly expecting people to be bored by the first video, but you guys seem to really like the last two videos that I put out, just sort of going through what I consider sort of foundations or basics of figure collecting. So, we're gonna listen to audience approval, and I'm actually making this video based off of a comment that was placed under the last video last week. And somebody asked, I don't know if I'm the most qualified to talk about this, but somebody asked if I could talk about selling figures secondhand other than eBay, or what are the best places to sell your figures secondhand other than eBay. Now, I know that last week's video was all about how to avoid having to do so and how to avoid having to, declutter your collection or sell off most of your collection. But in the event that you did not have my lovely face and me to tell you how to avoid that, and you're already finding yourself in this predicament, that is what this video is for, and this is what I'm trying to help you with. So I'm going to be quite frank, I do not have a lot of experience selling figures. I think I mentioned that in the last video, but you guys seem to really like my advice. So you know what? I decided I'm going to give the people what they want. I'm going to go do some research, and I'm going to go find the best ways for you to sell your figures. Even though I don't want you to, if you've already found yourself here, we might as well do the best with what we can. So this is what I'm here to do for you guys. So I've only sold less than a handful of figures, and most of the time it was I already had the pre-order ready and it was about to be shipped to me, and most of the time I just typed under the MFC comment section hey, I have a pre-order if somebody wants to take it over. And most of the time people have wanted to take over my pre-order, but the question was not how to have somebody take over your pre-order, even though we'll talk about that. The question was how to sell your figures once you already have them. So let's get into it. So I will probably talk about, including eBay, I'll probably talk about 4 or 5 different ways that you can sell your figures, at least the ways that I know of. If you have any special back alley way of doing things through Craigslist, I unfortunately am not covering that in the video, but I'm just going based off of what the most popular options are, and I'll give you pros and cons for each one, at least ones that I see looking as an outsider and as a researcher. My field of my major makes me so that I have to read a lot of academic journals, and this is my academic journal about selling your figures. So why don't we get started? Why don't we get the most generic things out of the way, ones that you probably have all heard of, even if it's not for figure collecting, and let's talk about eBay, Mercari, and Depop. I kind of group all of those together, and I will be talking about them individually, including their fees as a seller. Yeah, I searched that up for you guys, so you guys don't have to worry about that. But let's talk about eBay first, because you guys wanted to know the least about eBay, so why don't we get started with that? So I think eBay is probably one of the worst options for you as a personal seller, especially if you do not have a business or are constantly selling things on your page. Because one thing about eBay is that a lot of people will only buy from stores with a 98% or higher positive feedback section. And if you're looking at your collection and you're like, wow, I have not sold a damn thing in my life and I don't have one review, it's going to be really hard to get people to buy your figure or let alone trust you. And again, it's not their fault, right? If you were to buy something on eBay yourself, you're like, oh, I don't know about this. I think that it's a reasonable assumption for anybody to have to be a little bit wary about stores that don't have any, listings, or don't have any ratings previously, and then all of a sudden they have a ton. So as a personal seller, I would avoid eBay at all costs, not only for, the fact that it's really hard to actually make a sale, it's also hard to make a sale because the majority of figure collectors are not shopping on eBay. Most of the time, if I can put up some screenshots over here, most of the figures that you will find on eBay, and this is just a thing for buyers as well, most of the figures you'll find on eBay are actually bootlegs or people trying to rip off people who don't know anything about figures. Unfortunately, probably someone's grandpa or grandpa trying to get their kid a Caroline earring and then buying the bootleg because they're like, okay, there's no way that the figure could cost this much and I'm getting a discount, right? Most of the figures you will find on eBay are unfortunately bootleg or just abysmally priced because they are taking advantage of the fact that their audience does not know what figures are, what the prices of them are supposed to be. They just see it on somebody's wish list and they're like, yeah, I'll buy. Let's start talking about fees, shall we? Because I'll tell you why you shouldn't use eBay. Okay, so, whipping out the laptop for this one. But on eBay, there are two types of fees, but the first one you don't really have to worry about unless you are literally a business. But for the first 250 items, I'm concerned if you are trying to sell 250 figures in one go. There is an insertion fee. Very strange name for that. But every month, right? So if you're selling 250 items or more in a month, you get an insertion fee. Which doesn't make any sense, so I'm not going to be covering that. But there is an insertion fee if you are planning on selling that many things. I don't know why you didn't watch last week's video to avoid having to do that, but, whatever. But the most common fee that everybody will get charged, especially as a seller, is the final value fee. And according to eBay, I'll read it directly from them, it says, we charge one final value fee when your item sells, so you don't have to worry about third-party payment processing fees. Now, this is English for fuck you, and we just want to take more money from your pockets. Because most of the time, especially when you're doing things through PayPal, which I will cover, you don't have to worry about payment processing fees, and this is just another way for eBay to get more money out of you as a seller, which is again why I don't recommend them. But the fee is calculated as a percentage of the total amount of sale plus a per order fee. So for orders less than $10, I don't know why you're going through the effort of selling something less than $10, the order fee is 30 cents. And then for orders over $10, the order fee is 40 cents. Now, obviously that isn't the biggest amount, but the basic fees, I'll go based on the category because they do have a lot of categories. For their categories including trading cards, collectible card games, and I guess collectibles in general, their seller fee is 13.25%. Wait, what? Oh, my bad. So their final value fee for these types of items is 13.25%, which is ridiculous because if you are selling a figure for $100, automatically you're going to lose $13.25, including the shipping that you're going to have to pay for on top of that, right? And of course, maybe the buyer is paying for shipping, but it just doesn't make any sense to do that to yourself, in my humble opinion. But I can't find anything that I would specifically, I guess, say that is figure related, but I'm just going to go for their most categories, which includes collectibles and stuff like that. So 13.25% is an abysmal amount that you're going to have to pay for as a seller. And eBay does have the benefit or the pro of allowing you to have auctions or for people to make offers on your listings. But honestly, with a fee like that, you're just going to get lowballed, or you're going to end up having to pay a fee to get even half of the price of your figure, or you're going to get people that don't understand what figures are and they're not even going to be shopping on eBay anyway. So this is why, as the comment mentioned before, a lot of people don't like selling on eBay, and that's kind of why they want to know how to sell their secondhand figures. But unfortunately, before we get to the good stuff, we're going to have to go through the poopy stinker stuff. And unfortunately, I cannot recommend Mercari or Depop. It's sort of the same thing as eBay, but just with a purple icon instead. Mercari, I have personal experience selling things on there simply because I sold enamel pins on there. Again, very few. I don't sell a lot of things, so unfortunately I'm not the most qualified. But Mercari was an absolute nightmare to use, just as a seller and everything. And they have had a lot of updates about the fees and everything that they're charging to sellers and buyers, which decentivizes buyers and sellers. So I don't even understand why they're even alive anymore, or that I don't even understand why the platform still exists, because buying and selling on Mercari just, I don't know, it's the worst option for anybody. But just for your information, and just so you guys can know, if you guys would like to, sell your things on Mercari, maybe it's an easier platform, maybe it's something that you would like to consider. For the fees on Mercari, there are buyer paid fees. So the reason why I mentioned buyer paid fees if you're the seller is because you have to consider that when you are making the final price for your figure, which means that instead of selling directly to somebody, or maybe somebody in the local area, you're going to have to upcharge your figure to get the amount that you actually want. And unfortunately, with these buyer fees, it's going to make it even more expensive for prospective buyers to buy your figure, which is already I guess hard for people to justify, because figures are expensive and you don't want to make things even more expensive for them. So let's talk about the buyer paid fees. So this actually started on January 6, 2025, so this is very recent. There is a buyer protection fee of 3.6%. So that will apply to the item price and buyer paid shipping for new and updated listings. So, you know, if you're paying for like a $200 figure, a 3.6 upcharge on that is nothing to scoff at. And especially when you're trying to be a seller and trying to incentivize people to buy your items, it doesn't really add up. And including the buyer paid fee, which started on January 6th, there's also a seller paid fee that started on January 26th. And it's basically the same thing as eBay. I'm telling you, it's just remasses. It's just an eBay remask to be a little bit prettier, I guess. But there is a 10% selling fee, which will apply to the item price and buyer paid shipping for new and updated listings. So what did I tell you? It's basically the same, like 13.25%, or I guess like, it's even more than that, actually. Now that I'm doing the math in my head, I can do math. Like, it's even more than if you were paying on eBay. Now, obviously, the seller isn't paying that, like, 3.6% on top, so you're only paying 10%. But the likelihood that you're actually going to have somebody buy your figure is much, much less than, you know, if you were even selling on eBay. So I know a lot of people sell their figures and, you know, secondhand merch and whatever the hell on Mercari, but I personally, again, with the things that I've sold in the past, these fees just add up, and especially if you're selling anything over $100, it just does not make sense for people, especially when they are buying, like, paying for shipping and all this other stuff. Unless you make shipping free, but then you're losing more money, and then you have to make the figure more expensive. So honestly, it's just a lose-lose for everybody, and I will tell you my favorite way to, you know, sell my secondhand figures in a bit. I just want to tell you all the information as to why these places aren't necessarily the best for you. So, same thing with Mercari. Let's talk about Depop. Now, I hate Depop with a burning passion. And, you know, Depop is just an even uglier, like, Mercari. So, I already hate eBay. eBay looks ugly. Then there's Mercari that, like, tries to be like, ooh, we're a cooler eBay, and, like, all this other stuff. And you can, like, have your search terms, which don't really help you because it gives you stuff that isn't even relevant to your search anyways. And then Depop is just as ugly as, like, eBay, but somehow people use it. Now, I'm gonna be so real with you. If you are selling figures on Depop and not exploring your other options, I'm a little bit concerned for you, because nobody is going on Depop for figures. just saying. Just letting you know. If you didn't know that before, do not sell your figures on Depop, because everybody's looking for clothes or, like, I don't know, Rick Owens stuff on there. Like, nobody's buying like figures on Depop. But let's talk about the payment processing fee, because why not? So there is a 3.3% and a 45-cent US payment processing fee if you're buying in the US, and well, I guess it is the lowest fee out there, I'm assuming. Yes, okay. Maybe I'm wrong. My bad. I will take some of my hate for Depop back. Even though nobody's selling their figures and nobody's buying figures on Depop, they do have the lowest, I guess, like, sale tax, I guess, and it is at 3.3% for sellers, plus a 45-cent fee for whatever item you're selling. Now, I guess that's why a lot of people like buying clothes on there, because it isn't nearly as expensive, but you're not really gonna find your demographic. You know, all us, you know, anime enjoyers, or I guess enjoyers of well-endowed persons, aren't gonna be shopping on Depop. So if you want to put a listing that will never sell and will just collect dust, then Depop is your place to go. I would not recommend it, but that everybody has free will. If you just want to say that you're selling the figure and then keep it in your collection, like, Depop is the perfect place to do that. Now, all right, now that I got all the Joe Schmo out of the way, right, all of my least favorite places, let me tell you my personal recommendations for, I guess, like, how to sell your figures, because I think that these are the safest and, like, just my personal go-tos if I'm considering selling a figure. Do I have 2 figures that have not sold? Yes, and that's why I'm mad at eBay. But my personal favorite way of selling figures is just simply through my figure collection. And obviously we don't have Fig Shelf or any other, like, competitor, so I'm talking about my figure collection, but most of the time that I have sold figures or sold my pre-orders, I have done it directly through the, I guess, my figure collection tab for that figure, because ding ding ding, there's already a ton of people looking at the figure. If they're already looking at the figure and they're already interested in that figure, they're probably looking for listings and people selling that figure. Now, the positive thing about my figure collection is that whenever you have something on your wish list and somebody puts that up for sale, it gives a notification to all of the people who have that wished, and it will say, hey, this person is selling this item. And I will say, my figure collection is kind of a pain in the ass to actually put pictures of things when you are trying to sell figures, because you have to upload each individual image and then add that to your listing and all this other stuff. But it is much more likely that you are going to get a sale and that you are going to have people buy your figure, and, you know, I guess reliable people buying your figure, than just, you know, putting it on eBay and hoping that, like, somebody's grandma wants to buy your figure. You know, it's just a higher success rate overall. So if you're trying to get rid of things quick and you didn't follow my advice in the last video, my figure collection is just the no-brainer. Most people have different ways of selling on my figure collection, where they like do bundles and all this other stuff. That's the one thing that I will say that my figure collection doesn't really have against eBay and I guess Mercari, because all those sites you can bundle items, or you can, you know, select multiple items or make an offer on things. In my figure collection, it's very much like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, where you just have to talk to the person. So if you don't like talking to people and you just want like no contact with your sellers and you just never want to answer a question ever, then I guess, you know, eBay is your way to go. But it's very simple. Most people will just ask you the price for a figure, or if you're willing to take a lower price, and it will add one more thing to your inbox, which is not that difficult to handle, in my personal opinion. But again, whenever somebody has that figure or item that you're selling on their wish list, they will get a notification, including the price. So if somebody's interested in it, they will most likely buy it. Another thing I like about my figure collection is that you can really customize the description of all of your listings. So you could say what types of payment methods you accept. And I will pause right here to emphasize about how important it is to never say that you are accepting payment through Zelle. I don't care. Unless you're a scammer watching this video and you're trying to figure out the best way to scam people, I'm sorry, I'm not helping you out. Zelle is never the way to go, especially if you're trying to build buyer reputation or buyer or seller reputation, either way. Like, saying that you only accept payment through Zelle despite PayPal's, you know, like tax exemption or whatever, just pay your taxes, or like, I don't know, it's not even like that much. If you pay through goods and services, it's not a big deal. You are not going to get taxed unless you make like $15,000 on PayPal, and I'm assuming that none of you guys are. So, you know, I would personally, as a buyer, only buy from people who are willing to sell their figures through PayPal's like goods and services tab. And again, this is like under my figure collection. So like if somebody's saying, oh, I'll accept PayPal goods and services, then you're good to go. And if you're a seller, I would implore you to actually just follow through with that, because PayPal's like goods and services fee, I think, is like 3.6%. No, it's even lower than that. So in a PayPal checkout, if you're using the app or anything like that, it's 3.49%. And a fixed fee. What do we mean by fixed fee? Okay. So I just checked. So it is 3.49%, right? On top of like a 0.49. Why did I say 0.49? It's a 49 cent like charge for everything that you sell on, you know, PayPal goods and services. And usually it's the buyer paying that, or it's the seller. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it is the seller paying for that cost. But again, like the other options that I just mentioned on eBay and all the other places, you're paying so much more. And Depop, nobody's gonna buy your figure. So you might as well just go with the lowest percentage for paying off something. And by the way, if you sell on, I guess, eBay or Depop or whatever, you're still gonna have to file your taxes. Again, as a buyer or as a seller, never listen to anybody that says they only accept Zelle or PayPal, like friends and family. It does not make any sense. They're gonna have to pay taxes on those same things anyway. They're gonna have to get like a little 1099 form or W-2 form, whatever. They're gonna have to get that form at the end of the year, no matter how much they sell, because of their regulations for sellers. So there is absolutely no excuse to not put your things in, you know, PayPal goods and services. And as a seller, it is the lowest, or arguably one of the lowest and most, I guess, beneficial ways to protect you and your buyer in purchases. So that's my personal recommendation. That's how I've always done things. Other ways about going about selling figures is kind of just through different ways of advertising, if that makes any sense. So like, I'm not saying that PayPal can be avoided, unless you're like meeting up in person. That's something that people do when they post on my figure collection. It's like, oh, I will, you know, I'm in the Cali area and I'm doing local pickup only. And obviously, if the person is in front of you and they try to run off with a figure, you could just beat them to death. But like, you know, that's another way you can go about things. I haven't seen that work a lot, or I have no experience with that personally, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty effective way to go about things. But, you know, that's just another way you can sell your secondhand figures. I guess, if I had to say that selling your pre-order is a lot easier than selling your like secondhand figure. So if you can, and if you realize that before the shipment gets to your house that you do not want a figure, I would comment on their page like as soon as possible, because most of the time it's a lot easier to go onto the company's website and just change it to somebody's address once they pay you than, you know, than doing something like that. So it's a lot easier to just shift the shipment to them, and then it's Good Smile Company's problem. Then it's their problem, not your problem. Now, in terms of shipping, let's talk about shipping, because I think that's also an important thing. If you guys didn't see my post, and if you guys haven't been looking at the news lately, lots of stuff has been going on. And I mean, a lot of stuff has been going on, but let's not talk about it. Let's talk about how it applies to figures. So, especially for anybody buying things in China, Hong Kong, Mexico, or Canada, tariffs are happening, or at least I'm assuming they're happening. There has been like sort of a block between Mexico and Canada, and it's been delayed for about a month. But if you are shipping to people internationally, this shouldn't be a problem for US-based sellers. If you are a seller in an international country, or at least in the countries that I just mentioned, and you are selling to a customer in the US, they are going to have to pay a tariff. So that is something you should probably consider in the price of your figure if you want that figure to sell. But if you're shipping with different services, I would honestly, you know, mention that you don't want to ship through DHL, because if you are shipping through DHL, most of the time, it is going to say that the country of origin is in one of the tariffed countries, and hypothetically speaking, you could bypass that with the item by saying that it is a Japanese figure, it's coming from Japan, and all this other fun stuff. Now, I don't know exactly how, you know, accurate that is. This is just from what I understand and what people are talking about. But, you know, if I were personally shipping things to people internationally, or having things shipped to me, and I was selling from, you know, I guess Hong Kong to somebody in the US, which is really expensive shipping. I don't know, you wouldn't buy it anywhere else, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I would keep that in mind. DHL is very pedantic about their customs, and that's why they're super good, and that's why they are very quick. But if I were you, I would either ship through USPS EMS, or I guess like any other service like airmail or anything like that. Now, I will warn you, I don't know at the time of posting this, but all shipments from China and Hong Kong, like EMS, have been paused into the US, or they have been like held, so they're not moving anything right now until they figure out the tariff situation. But that is an important thing to consider, and that is something to remember for your figure purchases in the future. I wish I made last week's video this week, because then I would be able to warn people about it. But that's something to consider. But yeah, I don't really have many recommendations for how to sell. I guess my number one would be just post on my figure collection and hope that somebody messages you. I have never had a problem with messaging people on my figure collection. Unless you hate people. Unless you hate people, then that's another problem, and that's something to talk about with your therapist. But if you're trying to downsize your collection, and you've already gotten to that point, my figure collection is the best way to go. I don't really know about a lot of other ones. I've heard that you can individually sell things on Amazon if there's like an official listing for things, but that's really complicated, and most people probably won't trust you because there's no pictures. They will probably trust you even less than eBay, Depop, or Mercari, because like you can't upload pictures on Amazon. It'll just say used and the item price. So, especially if you've never sold anything before. So, I would avoid that. That's something I've heard. I don't really have many other suggestions, but let me know what you guys think. I hope this was helpful. You guys asked for it. If this isn't helpful, I'm blaming it on you guys. I'm sorry. You guys asked an unqualified person. I'm happy with my collection. But yeah, that is I think all I have for you guys. Oh, before anything, thank you guys so much for 2,000 subscribers. I am gonna talk about it more in next week's video, but I have just been through the moon, to the moon, through the moon. I don't know. I've been over the moon. I've been over the moon ever since I found out and I saw that number and I'm like, oh my god! And you guys have probably seen my post. If you didn't, or I won't blame you. But thank you guys so much for that. I might put this at the beginning of the video or the end. I don't remember what I'm gonna do, but I am so thankful. I'm really happy that you guys choose to watch my silly little videos, and I hope that I can be of use or helpful to you guys at all. And yeah, let me know if any of this is helpful, or if you guys already knew all this information. I did my best to research things for you guys. And yeah, I will let Artemis, voiceover Artemis, take over the video because I don't really know what I'm doing. So, bye! Welcome back to the end of another video. You have again made it to part 3 of our educational series. You guys really just think I have all the knowledge in the world, don't you? I really don't, but I hope this video was helpful to at least a few of you. Thank you guys again for 2,000 subscribers. I'll mention it again more in the next video when I actually have the headspace to talk about it. But hope you guys are doing great. Enjoy some bloopers, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Artist Mission Control. And no, it's not NASA. So, you might be wondering, first of all, shit. Okay, we're gonna do that again. Okay. Totally normal. And let's talk about Mercari, eBay, and I guess not Amazon. Okay, hold on. Mercari, eBay. Oh, okay. So let's get talking. Let me just make sure.